Hello, it's Andrew from the Suffolk Escape. Can't quite believe it's been 10 years of operation now for the Suffolk Escape, so thought it was a good time to kind of share the history of the business and the farm and how we ended up being here. My grandfather Tommy Bryce came down from Scotland in the 1930s, and he's quite entrepreneurial, and he found ways to kind of expand this farm here. He bought a small bit of land, and then by growing Timothy grass seed and finding a way and building extraction system to get that seed and sell it on, he managed to buy a bit more land. So he grew the farm really well through these entrepreneurial ways, and he's also one of the first farmers in the east of England to actually have a mechanical threshing machine, which you'd now call a combine. He had two children, Ian and Brian, and my father is Brian, and he's still seen on the farm now. He's been farming this land his whole life. He's now 80 and he's out there today on the tractor planting some fresh grass seed and wild bird mix, so he's constantly involved, and I think he will do to the day that he dies. But he's fit and well and often seen around and speaking to guests, so if you see an old chap on the farm, please come and say hello to him. So our farm here is about 300 acres, and that is predominantly arable land where we grow wheat, barley and oilseed rape. We've also got a bit of woodland and some meadows as well. So our farm used to have quite a large beef herd on it. We've had a free range egg business as well over the years, but in modern farming that things have slightly changed, that we're now down to predominantly arable, and that has meant some changes on the landscape in that we used to have sort of 5-6 men on the farm going back sort of 25-30 years working here, and now it's half a man's job. So the economics of farming has changed. Machines are a lot larger, and where we used to have sort of 3 or 4 tractors going over a field, and actually now one tractor with a certain piece of machinery on the back can do everything in one go. So things have changed, but that's one of the reasons we started the Suffolk Escape, was to create a business which meant that we could stay here on the farm, whilst actually it's a cousin of ours is the contractor who is doing the farming on this land. So I became aware quite early on that with a change of farm, it wouldn't be viable for me to be involved in the arable side of the business. So hence, trying to think of a diversification project for the farm. And that came really from me. I started at university studying tourism and management. And from there, I went on to work for an events business and moved on to their travel arm, designing travel programs around the world for large corporate companies. There were sort of money can't buy trips, such as, you know, traveling all around South Africa, private trains and planes around India, having dinner with Maharajas, and all sorts of amazing, glamorous things. It was an amazing job, so lucky. For several years we did that. But that gave me lots of ideas of how, if we set up a business in the tourism industry, what would be great? How can we make it really outstanding? And the one thing that stood out for me was, it wasn't just about these amazing hotels, some of the top hotels in the world, Sandy Lane, Richard Branson's private game reserves. But the thing that stood out in these places for me wasn't the quality of the buildings, it was actually the service. So that's when I decided to design this business, was to focus on that, was all about the service rather than just the building itself. Yes, they're outstanding, but what we tend to offer is that service. So the first step was for me to actually move back from Hertfordshire, where I was living, back to the farm here in Suffolk. So we managed to secure planning permission for an old barn down the middle of the farm. It was all falling down, but we managed to get permission for that, and then spent about 1.5 years converting that into a family home. For me, that was really the best learning experience I've had in terms of how to build, because it was hands-on with one builder, Jeff, who was amazing, who could do anything, and just taught me all the skills I needed to be able to build buildings. It was actually during that project that I met my now wife, Sarah. I think our first date was actually spent cleaning bricks up from the old barn. But from then on, our relationship developed, and we moved in and now have a family of 3 living in that very barn. So from there, Sarah and I looked at how we could create a tourism business on the farm, and the log cabin business then sprung from there. My brother lives in Latvia, and he was farming out there, and a good pal of mine had gone out and started a log cabin business, constructing Latvian log cabins. So naturally we worked together, and the cabin started to go up here. So we started in the spring of 2012, and it took us about 1.5 years to get going, and we then got everything finished. We dug the new lake, re-landscaped the whole site, built the cabins, got the trees planted, and we opened up ready for our first guests in the March of 2013. We took a bit of a gamble when we opened the business because I decided that we would actually make it adults only. A lot of people said, that's crazy, you're minimising your market, but I could see with the special location we have here, and then just having the 4 cabins nice and private, we could actually create this really quiet, peaceful oasis. And thankfully it was a brave move, but we were right to do it because the business has just been so successful, and we have now, I think it's about 60 to 70% of our bookings are repeat guests or word of mouth guests. So we're thrilled we've done it, and the feedback from the guests is, please don't change anything. So I can rest assured we're not planning to build any more cabins here. It's such a special spot, we don't want to change that. So the log cabins are being hugely successful, and we then looked at it and thought, how can we make the business more economically sustainable so that we can try and get somebody else into the office to take some of the load off me in terms of the marketing and the bookings. So in 2016 we managed to secure planning permission on the Sheepyard Barn, which is in the middle of the farm. This was previously used for housing cattle and sheep and pigs. So we cleared all those out and then started work on designing the perfect barn for holidays for families. And we use an interesting process for this. So actually we engaged with our audience who've been staying on a cabin, so asked them what they would want in their perfect holiday barn. And that was vital. So we've created this really unique facility which went on to win the best property in the whole of England. And we put down a lot of that down to the input we got from our guests and what they'd love to see. So the conversion of the Sheepyard Barn took us about a year to do. That was with myself and the team from Latvia did the conversion, and those boys took on everything from stripping the roofs to digging the swimming pool, the foundations, and right through to decorating the building. They're a great bunch of guys, and I'm so grateful for everything that they did. We finished the building and had our first guests arrive on the 14th of April. I remember us driving out with tractors and trailers full of everything from the site as the guests were coming up the driveway in the opposite direction. So it was right to the wire, but James and Karen were our first guests. They actually booked way before we'd even finished the barn, because they'd stayed here at our log cabins many times and they wanted to be the first guests to come and stay. So we were thrilled that they were our first visitors to the barn. So the Sheepyard Barn, as I said, has been a massive success. We are pretty much full a year in advance, certainly for all the weekends and the school holidays. And most guests that come book straight away to come back because they find it such a unique property. I think that comes down to a lot too, as I've said, that the guests gave us feedback into what they would like to see in their perfect property. But also just the space where it is. It sits up on its own, a mile from the road. You've got beautiful views. Even if the weather's bad, you've got all that glass and you can stand in the barn and look out and watch the storms drift by. It just works, and we're so proud of it. We've just won again the best self-catering property in the east of England with it. So, it's not just us believe it's amazing, our guests do, but also the industry kind of recognises it as an outstanding property. So we've got no plans to expand the Suffolk Escape. So if you're thinking about coming to a log cabins, you can rest assured it's going to stay this tranquil little spot with just these 4 adults only cabins. For those saying the Sheepyard, you tell us again and again that it's amazing, don't change anything, and you keep booking to come back again and again. So we're not going to change anything there. The only tweaks we're going to make is actually got a meeting shortly to look at how we can get some solar panels to provide some additional electric for the cabins to make them more sustainable. But also the other reason we don't want to change is we have this amazing team behind us, and that includes Jess, who's in the office, who looks after all the marketing and the bookings. Our guests keep telling us how incredible service she offers is, that she just does everything she can to make sure they have the perfect holiday. We've also got the incredible team of cleaners who do the maintenance and looking after the properties. That's led by Danny and Lisa. They do the most fantastic job because they really do care about the properties and making sure that the guests who arrive feel like they are the first guests to have stepped foot in the properties. And we get the guests tell us that. They say these cabins are 10 years old, how can that be? But it's the team around us doing an incredible job, so it's a huge thanks to them. Anyway, then let me wrap up and say thanks again for watching. Hope you come and stay with us again if you've been before, you know what to expect. If you haven't been with us, have a look at our videos to see what we're all about, but hopefully this gives you a bit of background to how we came to be. Anyway, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.